Breaking news, Musk dismantling the government.
In defense of our country, in defense of the rule of law, we stand together to stop Elon Musk and his army of tech bro wannabe stormtroopers.
DOGE is now everywhere in the federal government, and they are spreading like bed bugs.
Something very unusual is happening in the US. On the surface, it looks like Elon Musk, backed by Donald Trump, is taking over government agencies one by one. He is doing this through DOGE, the Department of Government Efficiency, created specifically for this purpose. He is firing officials and employees in droves, even seizing control of the Treasury with its $6 trillion annual payout. Next on Musk's list, the Pentagon. When Democrats in Congress tried to subpoena Musk for answers, the controversy only grew, and here's what happened.
Mr. Chairman, I think it's outrageous that this committee will not even entertain a motion.
No, you state your
Chairman, that's not a point of order.
Somebody who's breaking the law and dismantling our federal agents.
Out of
And you will not even entertain a motion to break this
As are in favor of tabling.
Yes, let's have order in this country.
Stansberry, you're out of order. You know you're out of order. You know the rules of this committee. There's been a motion.
Mr. Elon Musk is out of order and dismantling.
An independent senator, Bernie Sanders, summed it up with a simple question.
What do Mr. Musk, Mr. Trump, and their fellow billionaires really want?
And today, in this video, we'll have an answer. All right, here's a final question in our Who Wants to Become a Trillionaire game. What is Musk really doing? What is DOGE? As always, we have 4 answers for you. You need to pick one. So let's go quickly through the answers. The answer number 1 is improving efficiency, just like the DOGE website says. So Musk makes the government departments and agencies more efficient. So, is that true? Well, although it is probably true, it's just a part of the story. So, altogether, it's a wrong answer. The answer number 2, skipping a generation. Musk is bringing in his own team from ventures like SpaceX and Tesla. And they are mostly young people in their 20s. They're replacing older officials. Those who are in their 40s and 50s, they feel bypassed. So it seems like a skipped generation. And here's how that looks in practice.
Really, for the first time in modern history, it's not the physical laborers, the farmers, the factory workers who are being displaced, but it's the white-collar workers, the knowledge workers, the engineers, lawyers, doctors, teachers. And for a lot of the folks in this room, that's really scary. That's really concerning.
So, is this answer correct? Well, while it is definitely true, it is still not the full story. Alright, here comes the answer number 3. Big tech broligarchy. Some claim that DOGE is a takeover by a tech oligarchy. After all, the 3 wealthiest people stood next to the president at the inauguration. Power has never been so concentrated in wealthy hands. Yet, although this is also true, but it's still not the full picture. And the answer number 4 is stealth coup d'etat. Perhaps Musk has staged a stealth coup d'etat, and now is just installing loyal supporters and quietly stabilizing government.
Say that you're orchestrating a hostile takeover of government and doing it in a non-transparent way. What's your response to that criticism?
Well, first of all,
is this answer correct or not? Well, although it is definitely possible, it is still not the correct answer. The truth is far more intriguing. Musk is building the world's first AI state. DOGE is the AI state. Welcome to Scripter channel. where we explore AI and its impact on humanity. And I'm Scripter, an AI researcher and group behavioral economist. After graduating from Columbia University, New York, I spent 5 years in China as a Forbes columnist. For about 25 years, I've been running research on behavioral patterns in large groups. In other words, how large groups, including governments, make decisions. And today, we see that the rise of AI is transforming government itself. And America's Musk and DOGE are the first examples of how human organizations are evolving in the AI era. So what does Musk know that we don't? What's his goal? Our ancestors were hunters and gatherers, surviving on what nature provided. They lived in groups of no more than 30 people, simply because there wasn't enough food to support larger groups. Remember this number, 30. It's key to our story today. It wasn't until roughly 10,000 years ago, with the invention of agriculture, that larger communities, including villages and cities and even states, they began to form. But compare this 10,000 years with the hundreds of thousands of years our brain evolved in small groups. In other words, more than 90% of our evolutionary history was spent in groups of 30 or fewer. Our brains simply aren't built for much larger groups. You can try it yourself. Pick any random group larger than 30 individuals and try to remember their names. That's why modern organizations like military squads or school classes are typically limited to 30 to 40 people. Larger groups tend to become chaotic and unstable, and they split into smaller units. And as groups grew, they split into smaller units, each led by a manager. Then, as number of managers grew, they too split, giving rise to senior managers, then to directors, to vice presidents, and so on. This is how we have organized ourselves since Sumer and Mesopotamia times, by building hierarchies. And then AI came. After ChatGPT and other LLM models emerged just 3 years ago, it quickly became clear. One person can now effectively manage groups of not just 30, but 100, 1,000, and even larger groups. Suddenly, the entire pyramid implodes. The layers of middle management, all these managers and senior managers, they're no longer necessary. Instead of a government workforce of 3 million, you might need fewer than 1 million government employees, or perhaps even as few as 100,000, or even less. This is the new way people will organize themselves. It's not just reform, it's a revolution. AI government, AI state. And that's exactly what Elon Musk is building. That's what he is after, AI state. If there is one thing we know about Elon Musk, is that he loves tackling the impossible tasks, impossible projects, whether launching Tesla to revolutionize electric vehicles or founding SpaceX to privatize space. Now with DOGE, or let's call it AI state. So now with AI state, he is aiming to automate government. This project, the AI state project, is even more ambitious than Tesla or SpaceX. And it definitely will create a lot of resistance, fierce resistance. However, it is entirely achievable with even current technology. Now let's take a look at what's at stake. In other words, how efficient could an AI state be? Let's compare it to another of Musk's groundbreaking projects, the shift from gasoline-powered cars to electric vehicles. Well, in other words, Tesla project. This is a rough back-and-napkin analogy, but as history shows, simple calculations can reveal more than a 100-page report. As Buffett says, it's better to be approximately right than precisely wrong. A traditional gasoline engine has about 200 moving parts, whereas a Tesla engine essentially has just one, a rotor. The US government currently employs 3 million people, 3 million moving parts. And using our Tesla coefficient, it might suggest that only 15,000 employees are needed. Well, that may be too dramatic. So realistically, let's assume that in the first couple years, we might see the workforce shrink to around 1 million from current 3 million, meaning that about 2 million workers from what Musk calls low or negative productivity jobs will be channeled to the high productivity private sector. So that's roughly 2/3 reductions in 2 or 3 years. Not as dramatic as an engine analogy, but still impressive. If you think that going from 3 million to 1 million is unrealistic, consider this example. That's an example that Musk brought just yesterday. That's what they've discovered when they were auditing one of those agencies. So it turned out, you're not going to believe it, but it turned out that all data that agency stores is stored in a mine, in a limestone mine, in paper form. And it is like kilometers of shelves with paper files. And there are 700 people, government employees, who are actually running that mine. And this is a job to store that paper and operate that paper. This is a job in the modern world. This is a job of cloud computing, and it would take like literally a half-time person maintaining a cloud to run this entire operation. So this is how you go from 700 people to a part-time one person. That's it. We are back to our car comparison example. So now fuel and maintenance. A gasoline car's fuel costs around $3,000 per year, comparing to roughly $1,000 for a Tesla. So it's a 2/3 reduction. The US government spends around $300 billion on salaries annually. And if we apply Tesla coefficient, a similar reduction could lower government salaries to about $100 billion per year. So it's roughly $200 billion a year savings. For maintenance, a gasoline car might require $1,000 per year versus about $100 for a Tesla. So it's tenfold decrease. The closest equivalent of maintenance in government is fraud and leaks. Well, for obvious reasons, there is no reliable estimate of the total amount what we can expect to have here. However, based on the fraud that DOGE has already uncovered in just first few days, this maintenance cost could easily be in the range of $300 to $500 billion per year. And if we apply the Tesla coefficient, this 90% reduction, that could save around $400 billion a year. So, but let's be conservative here, and let's say $300 billion per year. Altogether, these efficiencies could save the government roughly $500 billion a year. Musk himself believes that he could save up to $1 trillion annually. It's an even more dramatic transformation than Tesla's. Consider his approach with Twitter, where after acquiring Twitter, he cut 80% of the workforce while boosting efficiency. Perhaps Twitter offers us a closer analogy for what Musk plans to do with the government. More importantly, an AI state would transform the US into a far more efficient and productive nation. Imagine government approvals, applications, and all the services being completed in hours or even minutes instead of weeks or months, how it is run currently. So essentially, the government becomes an app, an application on your phone. It's streamlined, transparent, and instantaneous. So what we have here is a transformation from a traditional government with hierarchies and millions of workers to basically an app on your phone. AI state. The economic value created could be enormous. We are potentially talking about $500 billion, or maybe $1 trillion, or maybe even more. So ultimately, we're talking about a transformation that yields a massive payout. And that's exactly what Elon Musk is after. An AI state app and $1 trillion in savings. And this isn't science fiction. It is happening right now. 10 years ago, few believed that Tesla could succeed. Now it's everywhere. Just go outside and look around. Tesla's everywhere. The same is happening with the AI state. The AI state is on the horizon, and DOGE is the first step towards that future. But here's one critical question. Every app has an owner. So, who exactly will own and control the AI state app? All right, and now we're getting to our secret section. Who could have thought it, right? That among all the professions, it would be actually the government employees. Among all the white-collar professions, it would be government employees who would be first to the exit. We had quite a few videos in the past talking about white-collar professions getting extinct by AI. And we primarily were talking about accountants, lawyers, and, doctors, and the rest of the white collars. Apparently, we have missed the most obvious target, government employees. Because for decades, it was considered that government jobs are the safest one, right? Just everybody knew that if you go to the government job, you basically don't have to worry about being sacked. It was a safe play, and it was supposed to give you safety and security. Ironically, the history, the nature, the world is very ironic. And it turned out, as we just learned, that basically these are the most risky, the riskiest jobs you can find. And it's pretty much clear now. I mean, it is so obvious. They will be first to get extinct. And we're talking not just about US. This is everywhere like this. Of course, there will be lots of resistance. There will be unions. There will be legal suits. There will be, gazillions of different obstacles. But you've seen the payout. You've seen the values that this creates. We're talking about trillions of dollars. All these little barriers like unions and everything, that will be just wiped out by this tsunami of value created. And we have seen it in cases of, car drivers, right? Initially, also we saw that car drivers, the unions, and the owners of the taxi plates, they would resist Uber. Well, a couple of years, and it cost Uber just a few $100 million, maybe $1 billion, like nothing, basically. And all these obstacles were gone. The same will be with government. So we're looking at a fundamental trend that is basically wiping out professions one by one, and it just so happens that the government employees are next in line. I personally believe, if you ask my opinion, if it just so happens that you are a government employee, which is probably unlikely, I don't think that many government employees watching us, but nevertheless, if that happens so, or maybe somebody in your family, and you are not ready to retire in the next, 5 years, then or maybe 10 years. So if you are in your 30s or 40s, I would highly recommend start looking around and building a plan B. and maybe even like switching the boat, and or at least have a strategy. So again, ironic, but the safest job the job that was considered to be the safest one turned out to be the most risky. Yeah, and another thing that I wanted to share about this situation is that I have personally kind of mixed feelings about what's going on. I've never worked directly for government, but in the last 25 years, I've been involved in projects where government people were involved in one way or another, or different governments. And for example, I've been involved in top the three largest bankruptcies in North American history, and also happen to be the three largest bankruptcies in the world. And I've seen quite a lot of government people in action. I've probably attended maybe 100 or maybe more meetings where government people were also involved. And my main background is basically corporate and startups, right? So that's my natural environment ecosystem. And each time we were interacting with government people and we were sitting on those meetings, that feeling, it is hard to explain, but it is so obvious, that difference between business, like private people, and government people. There's so much inertia on that other side. It's like these guys are actively resisting to work. Like it's almost like sabotage. It's an incredible feeling. It's so, I don't know what's your experience. You can go and share in comments, but that's my personal experience. And for this reason, I probably a little bit less, I feel less for them. And another thing that I observed about the government guys, with very few exceptions, well, very notable exception, but still very, very few exceptions, is that the government employees, and again, we're talking not about US government, but also Canadian and Australian and even Chinese governments, they are they're almost like kids in terms of their professional development. They're not prepared for this world outside. Usually how they work, they get into one, again, with a few exceptions, but generally, on average, how it works, they got into some department, they sit there for 5 or 10 years doing pretty much the same thing. Even if they progress up the career ladder, they still doing pretty much the same thing. And even if they get on the management level, so they become managers, they are governing government people. And it is very different leadership style if you compare it with, I don't know, for example, startups. I personally ran 3 startups. I launched 3 startups. And I can tell you, the type of skills that are needed to, I'm not even talking about be successful, but just for survive in a corporate or startup world, is completely different from the type of skills that you need to survive in the government role as a leader. Just because in a government role or even in a corporate role, if you're in management role, it's kind of expected that people will be listening to what you say and doing that. Well, with some sabotage, of course, but nevertheless. So it doesn't really require leadership per se. So it's just following a routine. And in the new world, in the world that we're entering, in the AI world, where it is pretty clear that it's going to be a very aggressive, kind of almost like a wolf packs running against each other, in that type of environment, it's a completely different leadership that you need. So I'm really concerned about how the government, this 3 million government employees, how they gonna adapt to this private world. What's gonna happen when they will come out of that metaphorical mine, limestone mine, and will see the actual world around them. It's a big question. And here's the thing that really worries me. Because, all right, this 2 million or maybe 2.5 million people, they will have to move from the government jobs. Many of them will retire, and that's pretty much many of them actually, that's a plan for them. Government people, this is their dream, to retire. They don't even hide it. It's very clear. They're just counting days to retirement. So it will be not very big shock for them. It will be normal. But still, many people will actually have to they will find themselves in a situation where they do not have a job. And we're talking about probably more than 1 million people. But the good thing is that US economy, I think, will one way or another kind of digest them, because, well, it's we're talking about maybe 1 million people. Overall economy in US is big, so they will absorb one way or another. But what I'm worried about is about white collars, because what we see here with government employees is just the first step, because the next guys in row are the rest of white collars: lawyers, accountants, teachers, bankers, pretty much all office workers. I cannot find a single profession that, like typical white collar profession, that still makes sense in this new world. And here we're talking not about a few million people. We are talking about probably tens of millions. If we talk about the world globally, we're talking about hundreds of millions of workers, of people, of white-collar people, who very soon, and now it's as obvious as it's possible, very soon will not going to have a job. So what's they gonna do? Do we really have a plan for them? How to occupy them? And even if we talk about just from a strictly, if we leave for a second the fact that so many people will be on their own, will suffer, are not going to have the job anymore. The question is, how do we keep social order? Because this will be basically unrest of enormous scale. And the worst part is that this is actually a white collars. These people used to be the best paid people, the most educated people. You can think of them as some sort of a skeleton of of all society, of all societies across the world. It's like a foundation of societies. And now they're gonna go become redundant, unnecessary. So what is our plan for this situation? If you have any thoughts, just go straight to the comments. Let us know. And as a very last thing, as you know, I'm a science fiction writer. And as a matter of fact, I write sci-fi thrillers. And as a matter of fact, in my last book, Scripter, it's actually exactly what is happening there. It's basically, well, it's like a spoiler alert probably, but well, it's technically happens quite early in a book, so I don't think I cause much damage here. But basically, it's a AI getting self-aware, and that AI is wiping out professions and people. So it's basically almost like it was supposed to be a sci-fi when I started writing it 10 years ago. And it's very quickly becoming like a documentary. But my point here is that we have a Kickstarter for this. And it's actually gonna be closed in about 6 days. So you still have a chance to participate and to back my book and to basically be involved in the creation of that book. And that book, right after we close that Kickstart, what's going to happen then is that we will get the very final step, which is to edit the book, because it's a translation from Russian to English. And we already found an editor. So we have an editor who is just waiting for us to for Kickstarter to finish. And right after that, in about 2 to 3 weeks, the book will be ready, and maybe a week later, it actually will be published, and you will have it. By the end of March, you will have this book, and you still have 6 days to get yourself involved and to have fun with this, because I definitely going to be lots of fun. And also, don't forget to join us on our mailing list newsletter. Link is right here, thescripter.com. And of course, just a regular YouTube voodoo, like subscribe, comment. Well, I don't know, do the rest of the things that everybody, you probably know better than I am what you have to do. All right, I think that's pretty much it for today. It was quite intense. I hope you enjoyed it, and we will see you on the other side.